Halloween Haunt kicked off for the 2024 season already. Don and I got to attend. Here are our thoughts. Hello, everybody. Alongside Don Helbig, I'm Ryan Sir, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans, for Kings Island fans, because that's who we are and that's who we care about. So, Ryan, opening weekend in the books for Halloween Haunt. We both visited. What were your initial thoughts?
I honestly think that maybe it would be difficult to communicate exactly what had happened, but what was marketed to the people was that there's a new scare zone. It's called Hooked. But I feel like that's like the smallest element of what's
Yeah.
new for Halloween Haunt. Like that's what I kept on thinking, because Hooked, let's start with Hooked. I mean, here's a daytime photo of it.
Right.
It's fine. It's pirate themed. My favorite part is that they do have like a sunken pirate ship that's on the lake that's over kind of like across from Enrique's and stuff. But they had this before. They had the shipwrecked one. None of the same props from what I can tell, but kind of the same in spirit, but it's very, very small. And
Yeah, very small in the footprint. But I will say what they do have looks really good. I
yeah,
like the signage. I like, the logo, the ID sign for it. You talked about, the boat, the ship in the water there. I thought makeup wise, the scare actors, I thought the makeup looked phenomenal. I thought they did a great job with that. I've always enjoyed the pirate themed, whether it's a scare zone or before they had a maze and near the beginning of Haunt they had a maze that was over in Rivertown and that. So I always felt those were among my favorite Haunt scare zones or mazes when they've done that, and I thought it was really well done. Like I said, very short, little footprint what they have there, but what they did with it, it works. I enjoyed it.
yeah. And then so here's another thing that we didn't know about, but I think is works very, very well. And this is over by like next to like between Backlot Sun Coaster and where the Vortex was. And this was formerly the spot where they had the I guess the Pumpkin Eater originally, the
Pumpkin
pumpkin
Eater,
night.
right?
And then I don't remember what the theme was in the previous years, but they used green lights. I do remember that because they would use them for Winterfest as well. But
Mm-hmm.
this one is like I don't know if it has a name on the map or anything, but it's like tree themed, and they have a bunch of people in ghillie suits, and this is so cool. Like
It was
you know,
surprise and delight because we knew nothing about it. They hadn't talked about anything over here, and it was just wandering on the park. I ran into it, and I was like, "What's this?" And I thought it was really cool.
yeah. So I think they did a fantastic job with it. It's got some new
Mm-hmm.
animatronics, and like I said, a bunch of people in ghillie suits that are very, very well disguised. A ghillie suit, by the way, for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, is the suits that they're mainly for military, but obviously they have haunt applications where somebody's covered in burlap and kind of like leaves and
Right.
stuff, so they can blend in with the bushes. But especially under the lighting that they have there, which for those of you who are audio listeners is a ton of fog and green lighting being lit by lanterns from above. Uh, they were able to get me. They were able to get members of my group and stuff. So it's really great. Um,
Some of the best screams that I heard in the scare zones when I went on Friday was in this area. I thought, very well done. Again, surprise, delight. Nobody, I wasn't expecting, you weren't expecting it. So to have something like this, that you weren't expecting, I thought it was really cool, really well done.
do you think that's a good thing though? Because I feel like I benefited from it because I was going to come anyway. So for me, I was like, all right, they got a new scare zone. This is going to be dumb. And then I was pleasantly surprised. Like, do you think that's the intention of not really talking up some of this other new stuff? Or do you think that it's more like, Hooked is a little
The
bit
scare
better of a
zones were
story?
always hard to promote. It was always, the mazes were always kind of the star attractions of Haunt, and the scare zones were kind of that added value piece of it. I mean, they were the complementary,
Hmm.
part of Halloween Haunt. And in terms of getting people excited or to buy a ticket or use their season pass to visit, the scare zones typically never really move the needle like a maze would. When the promotion for Hotel Saint Michel, you could tell a really good story with that.
Hmm.
Kilmarge, you could tell a good story with that slaughterhouse. They had the storytelling component to it. A scare zone doesn't necessarily have as deep of a storytelling component. So I don't, I don't, you know, think the park missed by not promoting this in advance.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing too. It's like I was trying to mentally try to formulate how I would promote it if I did, because again, it's a tough. The hooked one, that's low hanging fruit. Oh, it's pirates. Pirates have hooks for hands. I, that's a known fact, of course. But with this, it's kind of hard to describe. It's you can't really. Oh, it's trees and ghillie suits. Like, yeah, take my money,
Yeah,
please.
very hard to describe, right? Exactly.
But the only thing I could think of was if they promoted it as two new scare zones, one called this one, it's like curves or something. Like, I don't know if it's on the map or not, but I know that like with the lantern, there's an interplex story with a police car talking about exploring this area when you scan the police car over by Jukebox Diner with the lantern. um I would maybe package them together about two new scare zones and maybe not even go into too much detail about it.
Another thought, Ryan, too, is
Yeah.
when they were putting the park map together to get that printed and everything, that maybe they weren't finalized on this yet,
Hmm.
and it came in late, and maybe that's why it wouldn't be on the map, that it was a late addition. But either way, I think it definitely enhanced the experience for me. Sounds like it did for you too.
Yeah. I'm actually going to look up the haunt map because if anything, I really want to know um, what the name of the maze is, if it's on there. I think it is. I think it does at least reflect that it's a park map, but park
Yeah,
info. Um, but yeah, so I was very pleasantly surprised by it. And then I guess I'll share. I'm on
yeah. While you're looking for
visitkingsisland.com.
the other photo there for those watching on YouTube, but one of the things for me, I always felt uh, the scare zones created the better atmosphere, and kind of you heard more scares in that through the scare zones than you did the mazes. So they've always
Mhm.
done a good job with the scare zones.
Well, I mean, we talked about it last year. It was like yeah, they're almost more important than the mazes because even on a night when they pack 35,000 people into the park and everything's a 90-minute wait, you can still do the scare zones.
Oh yeah, yeah. Everybody can do the scare zones. I've we talked about it before. I'm not a big fan of uh, the Nobu necklace. I think that takes away
Mhm.
for the guest experience if you're in an area where guests are coming through with those. But overall, between Hooked and this, I was impressed. Did a
Yeah.
nice job.
So for you audio listeners, I have this pulled up. The scare zones listed are International Street Fear, Pumpkin Eater,
Mhm.
Hooked, Coney Mall, Alien X, and Abandoned. So yeah, this is not on the park map. But one of the feedback items that I saw on like maybe the season pass holder
Mhm.
group was they liked how things were spread out, where there's no dead area of the park. So if anything, it completely goes against like Cedar Point's design, where all of Haunt's in the back of the park. But they said they liked how Hooked is in front of the Fest House and Pumpkin Eater is now in front of the Kings Island Theater.
The other right.
So now Pumpkin Eater was cut down a little bit. I like the direction it was going. It had like almost like a village to it, but now it's more like a straight through scare zone. Um, I don't know how I feel about that, but it's also not exactly a deal breaker. Is the best way to put it because
Well, you don't need as many scare actors when it's in that location where it's at right now. When it was in more in action zone, covered a lot more um, of the area. You needed more to make it work,
mhm.
or it was just you're just looking at the props and the decor and everything in there. So I think with this, it's more effective where they have it as a scare zone where it's tighter. So I think that's a better use of a scare zone when there's less space around it.
Yeah. Um, so just let's generally like just overview on decor. And I just picked a random photo for this because, I really enjoy the Halloween decor. But I think they did a pretty good job this year.
Did a really good job. I'll say, it's come a long, long way. When it was Fear Fest, and then when it first became Halloween Haunt, it was the theme was blood, terror, gore. You had things just thrown everywhere around the park. Just trying to make it look real immersive and all that. But then it kind of got pared down a little bit. The last 4, 5, 6 years, it's become a much more um, polished look. It's more about quality
Hmm.
and quantity, and I think it's paid off for him because it looks, you know, I'll use the word professional, really professional around the park and how it's done. You can tell that the people who do this, put up the props and do all the decor net, that they are, professionals. That's what they do. In the early days of Halloween Haunt, the people doing this stuff was the different divisions. We each had our own area of the park we had to decorate. Marketing, we had to make our own, area in the park. Finance had their own area. Food and beverage had their own area. So it's gone from just full time staff, helping put this event together, to having a team of people that this is what they do. And it really shows in a much more, polished look for Halloween Haunt.
Yeah, I mean, and an example of the difference is, I remember when Dinosaurs Alive opened, that would have been 2001, discussing with my friends of like, "Oh, God, I hope this October they don't throw a bunch of trash in it and call it a haunt, because everything had to have
Yeah.
fake blood on it and everything had to have skeletons on it and stuff. But now it's kind of like,
Yeah, it was just like for anything, even like a maze, it was just throw up the plywood, splash some paint on the wall, and try to make it look like blood everywhere. And it's really come a long, long way. And Robert or Moore there, manager of entertainment, that there, he is phenomenal in you know getting everybody to work together as a team. They're all proud of what they did, and they should be.
absolutely, and it's funny because the house has become, at least in the past couple of years, have there's been a little bit more technology in them, shall we say? And
Hmm.
the thing that
Exactly.
comes to mind is the is it still called Chaos, or did they change the name? I think they changed the name of it. Um, Alien Abyss now.
Alien Abyss, yes.
So Alien Abyss has a pre-show video and stuff. And the cool part was is they were able to pivot, because I remember they would watch like the first week last year, you'd watch it and it was so long and it was like they were trying to be funny and it didn't land, and you're just like, okay, let's just do this, let's just do this, and then it made the line so long because they had to keep people in that room for like, felt like an eternity, but it's probably like 3 minutes. And then they 2 weekends in, maybe they cut down the video to be like, hey, I'm this person, and then like immediately the aliens attack, rather than going through this whole thing. And then like there's a climax at 5 minutes in where the aliens attack and stuff. So I did like how there was a pivot with that. Like they understood the situation,
Oh
but
yeah.
I didn't want to discourage them from doing stuff like that because I think it's really important. But I also noticed that with the haunt mazes, they made announcements. So it's like in like, pre-recorded fashion in one of the themed voices. It was don't touch the scare actors, don't touch other people. The normal spiel. One of the things I always hated about mazes is, especially at Kings Island, because I don't feel like you would see this at like standalone haunted houses, is you get somebody up there that's like clearly done the same spiel 1,000 times already, and they're like, "Don't touch them characters, and they won't touch you." Blah blah blah. I always thought that was like very ineffective, especially because they're supposed to be in character. So I like the direction they're going, where they just play a general announcement every few minutes of, because people, it's probably a legal thing. You should know not to touch the haunt actors, but unless there's a rope, you can go past it in today's world. Um,
Hmm.
but I did like that aspect, and I know that's not necessarily decor, but I think that like as far as general ambiance is concerned, that's really kind of a cool aspect.
It's improved it.
I think so too. Now, I did not get to see Ghouls Gone Wild, but you did, right?
I did. Same songs that was in that show from years past when it was there. But I don't think the makeup and the costumes have ever looked better
Really?
than they did this year. I mean, they look, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, and it
With
was funny because I didn't get to see the show, so I didn't get to snap a photo. But I googled "Ghouls Gone Wild: Kings Island," and I found if this doesn't have Don written all over it, I don't know what does. Because this is from the
yes,
previous run. This is October 9, 2009, from the Herald Bulletin, which is Indianapolis market, I would guess.
yeah, it's out in the Indiana area. Yeah.
Yeah, so Kayla Price, who was a performer at Kings Island, it's real quick snippet. Submitted photo: Kayla Price, a waitress at Lemon Drop, shows her fangs in Ghouls Gone Wild, a musical show at Kings Island near Cincinnati. And I don't want to go into this whole diatribe of the small hits with PR. I mean, we've discussed that to death, but this is a perfect example of if these people live north of Indiana or whatever, they could be like, I haven't been to Kings Island in years. I didn't know a girl I went to high school with was in that show. We should go. You know?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was something I really enjoyed doing. Getting those kind of placements was
Mm,
finding the hometown of the performers. If they were outside of the Cincinnati area, you would just talk about them being in this show or that show, and the newspapers would pick it up. Sometimes the TVs would as well too, if you sent them both a photo for their online stories, but also a quick 30-second video clip of them performing. Sometimes they couldn't use it because of the music or whatever. Sometimes there were some issues with that, but they still would at least talk about it. But yeah, I always had fun doing that. It's that brought back a lot of memories. Ryan, there you pull in that photo, and I remember how excited she was that she was featured in her hometown paper.
yeah. I mean, I think that's really cool and great way to get the performers recognized and great way to get the park's name out there. But so Ghouls Gone Wild wasn't the only show, the only returning show. Nightwalkers came back for year three, and did you get to see this one, Don?
I did.
What were your
I did.
thoughts?
I mean, there's some different things in it from the previous years,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still pretty much the same, type of show, the same kind of storyline that they've had before. Um, you've got, you've got the video screens that they make, good use out of. There's some, fun little things that they show there. I think at the end though, when the performers are, coming out to bow to the crowd and get the applause and that, I think there's a little bit of a distraction going on behind them. I would kind of not do that at the very end,
Mm-hmm.
so the performers can get their due from the crowd. But other than that, it's a high energy show, very entertaining. Um, I think the crowd seemed to really like it. It was a packed theater when I saw it. I saw it was the first run. It was a 7:30 performance on Friday.
Okay.
It was just getting dark, so I saw it at a very good time. But I like I mean, there's a lot of different things involved with it. And, you can see here if you're watching on the video, behind the screen, like there's that skeleton there with the fire coming off its head. And I mean, that's really cool to see when you're in the crowd. So I like the show. It's fun.
Yeah, so I expressed this maybe in an episode last week, but um, you know, for Nightwalkers the first year, I guess that would have been 2022. Um, I was so blown away, and the show was so good, and it was so fun, and it was so high energy. And then they retooled it last year, and I remember being like super disappointed. And it was to the point where a friend of mine that's like was really into the first year of Nightwalkers watched it, and he was so disgruntled that he like left for the night. He like left the park. This is more similar to the second year than the first year, but there's something about it that's just a million times better, where it really took that
It's
jolt of energy back and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was high energy, and it did remind me of that first year, of it in a lot of different ways. Like I said, there's some subtle, things. If you've seen it all 3 years, you can tell there's, some differences from year to year. But it's definitely worth checking out. If you're at Halloween Haunt, make it a point to see Nightwalkers.
Yeah, definitely see it. We want to hear your comments. Or hear your thoughts in the comments below. But for those of you who do enjoy Nightwalkers, how does this one stack up to the previous 2 years? I'd love to, because it seems like there's such array of opinions where there were a lot of people like, I didn't like the first year, but I liked the second year. And to me, like, that's crazy. The first year was awesome. The second year fell on its face. Then there's this one, which I think was a good improvement. But I will say this: the first year I saw Night Walkers at least once every time I went to Haunt.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, Ryan. Too, when you're talking about night walkers, if someone has never seen any year of it, so didn't see it in 2022, 2023, and they're going to see it for the first time this year, um, you're going to have to see it more than once because there is so much going on.
Yeah, you're not going to pick up on the loose storyline or anything. But what I was going to say was last year, so the second year of Night Walkers, I saw it on opening night and I hated it, and I decided to give it another chance a week later. Hated it again. Never saw it again. This one, I was with a group of people on Friday, so I didn't have the opportunity to see on Friday. On Saturday, we saw the first show, and I saw it again on Saturday night. No regrets whatsoever. Actually, the only regrets I had was for the first show, we sat in the back row corner because it was like a last minute decision to see it, and we could hear like the heavy metal of the park over the show, so it kind of like took away from the show. But the second time we got there early and we sat in the second row middle, and it was just so cool. So yeah,
Yeah, that's where you want to sit for this. Is kind of in that middle section, down close.
yeah, it's love to see a lot of people out there. This is one of those shows where it's like, they put a lot into this whole thing. Somebody on KIC made this argument. And I think I want to bring it up because I think it's very true where it's like, we talk a lot about voting with your feet and stuff like that, where I think the person made a joke of, if like, they didn't want to buy one of the lanterns, but what they'll do is they'll follow around somebody with one so they can have the same experience. And somebody else replied, like, I know you're joking, but if you want to send a message to management, like if they're going to do cool stuff like this, like work with them on it. So this isn't a huge ask, but if they're going to put this kind of money into these shows, and I know for these shows aren't cheap, it's 15, 20 performers and everybody else involved. Give it a shot at least. Even if you're not a show person, take some time. It's a good time, but I really want to encourage that behavior when it comes to people that enjoy the park. Where if there is something you do enjoy, make sure that it's expressed. You don't have to write them a letter or anything, but again, vote with your feet, and when it's necessary, vote with your wallet. You know?
I think when you talk about night walkers, we mentioned Ghouls Gone Wild. To me, both of those shows are very much a part of the Halloween Haunt experience.
Yes.
And I highly recommend that you do those. Sometimes people just want to ride the rides, and that's all fine in that. But if you want to get the most out of the Halloween Haunt experience, you have to see both of those shows. Then do a couple of mazes. Go through the scare zones, eat some food, and then you're going to go home and you're going to know that you had a full night, a great night at Halloween Haunt.
Absolutely. Now, we would be remiss if we didn't mention this is not exactly Halloween Haunt related, but it is new for right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the French Corner got a new look again. So the French Corner is the most renovated place in Kings Island over the past 10 years.
The history of the park. There's been so many different things with
Yeah, I mean,
that corner
just,
building there, but
I remember there being a bakery or something there, and then it was
oh
closed
yeah,
for a long time, and then it was Starbucks for a while, and then it was Froyo
yeah.
for a while, and then was it French Corner after that, or was it?
There's been so many things,
Yeah,
Ryan. It all runs together, but yeah, I mean, I remember you could get fudge there and everything else. You're right, back in the '80s. But I was impressed with this. I knew they were doing some construction. We saw that starting to take place in August. They kind of opened it up, took out that middle
yeah,
thing. So there's now room in there to kind of walk around. There's the tables. It's more inviting to sit down in there. There were tables in there before, but you didn't really notice them because that wall, that middle thing, kind of blocked it if you came in a certain way. And that, so it's a nice place to go in and sit down. They still have, the shrimp sandwich and the muffalata. Those are two of my favorite dining options there on the meal plan. So they still had those. They got a bar in there now, and it looks really nice. So if you're interested in the haunt drinks, the blood bags and that's the place to go to get it. But I really like what they did in there. It looks first class.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that they're adding a ton of bars. You know, we make a lot of jokes about it, and I would hope that French Corner, the restaurant, wouldn't suffer on behalf of staffing the bar instead, because what I'm thinking is maybe the direction they're trying to go is for things such as haunt, that the
Yes.
bars are popular and stuff. Because I've noticed that you know, like 21 and colder and stuff like that isn't always open. So I mean, we know what they're doing. They're not hiding the ball. It's a matter of, you know, if you buy alcohol, it's a high margin product. It's not on the meal plan. It's not on the drink plan. Like, okay, that's fine. But what I'm hoping is that if they're gonna have a bunch of bars open, or at least have a bunch of bars at their disposal, it's going to be for the times when it would be necessary, and not that they're sacrificing other dining experiences to have bars open. Because one thing I have noticed, and this does bother me, is that I can't tell you how many times the park's been busy, usually like a Friday, and the Coke Freestyle in Rivertown is closed, but the bar in front of it is open. And the person that it's
That's a pet peeve of a lot of people, Ryan.
yeah,
You
and
see
the
that
person
happening.
sitting there like playing on their phone because they're like no one's buying alcohol at a park when it's 95 degrees out, and if they are, they'll go somewhere where they can sit in the air conditioning. You know, um,
Yeah, and then like freestyle's closed, right? So you
mm,
have to go somewhere else to get your drink refilled. There is another one in Rivertown, out near the Diamondback entrance, but that one, because it's the only one open in the area there, because that one over by La Rosa's is closed
mm.
99.9% of the time. That it's like 50 deep on some days on those busy days to just get a drink. So it's frustrating. You're right to see the bar open but not Coca Cola.
Yeah, but let's not take away anything from the French Corner with this.
No,
I,
no,
I
this was really well done, and it was. I wasn't expect. When I heard they're going to put a bar in there, I was just hoping it wasn't going to be a replacement
right.
for the French Corner of the food, because, like I said, those menu items have become some of my favorite things. If you haven't tried the food there, you really got to try it. I mean, it's, I think, the hidden gems of all the food in the park this year. But to go in, see that those menu items were still there, and just it just looks like I said, a first class kind of place. I like the tables. I was able to just sit down and enjoy my sandwich, and had a couple people come up and were talking to me. One guy, that's known me for years up there. We had a long conversation, talking about some different things, and just a nice place to relax. So you'll be seeing me in there a lot when I'm at the park.
Yeah, so if you can,
Not for the alcohol part of it, but for the food, and just a nice place to sit down and relax.
yeah, I mean, if the shrimp po' boy gets the endorsement of the man, where three of his five food categories involve chicken, then you know it's
The
good. I
shrimp
mean,
po' boy, you have to try that. That is amazing. Like I said, the hidden gems, the two items that I talked about there, and again, like I said, the atmosphere in that whole building just changed by just removing that middle piece there, and
yeah,
the bar doesn't bother me in there. I
no,
thought for haunt, seeing the blood bags and that, hanging there. I mean, it was kind of fun to go over and ask which ones were the most popular, and talk about that. So yeah, I mean, I really like that they continually have been trying to find a solve for what's the right thing to do with that building, and I think they probably now have hit on it.
I sure hope so, because it seems like when the park's not busy, French Corner is usually, or when a park is busy, French Corner is a good place to go because you don't wait as long there. But with that being said, I mean, they with the nature of, I'm not trying to say the associates are slow or anything like that, but with the nature of the food kinds that they have, it takes a little while to get you your food. So
Yeah, it's
they
not
don't have that
something that's put
capacity.
in there for you. They kind of have to make it as you order it almost, and but that extra 3 5 minutes that you're waiting, it's worth it. I mean, the food is really really good, and some other people that I've spoken with about the culinary experience at Kings Island this year. It's also one of their favorite places, so check it out. I think you'll like it too.
Yeah, I hope that people heed your recommendation, because if you look at the comments, did you ever look at the comments for our tricks and treats episode? Did you get to go through those at all?
I did.
People were very split, because 50% of the people seem to be you were like their voice. They're like, I'm an adult that's a picky eater too, and I hate vegetables, and I only eat chicken, and I only eat spaghetti, and I've got the palate of a 10-year old. And then other people were like, why are we taking Don's recommendations on food when he's like a chicken nugget only guy? But
I'm not a chicken nugget only guy. I mean, I eat shrimp. I'm eating shrimp at the park. Um, there's other things there I'll eat.
right.
It's you know, but I do like if I just think if I didn't have the dining plan, I wouldn't know about any of these things at the park. As how good the food was. I knew, because people would talk about it, but myself, I wouldn't have been able to explore other things. It would have been, the basic choice. I would have done either Tom and Chi and the brew house. I wouldn't have tried some of these other things around the park. I would not have, gambled and tried the food at French Corner. I wouldn't have tried, some of the things at Jukebox Diner. I wouldn't have tried some of the Fest House food. So it's been good.
Yeah, the best part of the meal plan is saving money. The close second best part is being able to be adventurous, especially when it comes to things like tricks and treats, where even if the portion's a little small, if it's on the meal plan, eat again in 4 hours, you'll be fine.
I saw the flatbread pizza, the signage out front of
Hmm.
the Roses on International Street. Pictures looks good. It's got some things like we talked about on the previous episode that I won't eat, but I might still get it and just pick that stuff off.
Just try it. That's all you can do, and then circle back around and let us know if this time last year, if you have an extended palate, Don, that can enjoy the finer things in life, then I'll feel like I've done my job.
You know what? Okay, now, and as we mentioned on several episodes ago, I had the stroke in my eye, so I can't see, hardly at all out of my left eye, and then I can't see up close out of my right eye. So that might be a an opportunity for me, without knowing, to try some different foods there where they'd have some of those different ingredients and things on it that I normally wouldn't, and I might find that it adds a lot of taste to it. I know when I was at the Golden Ticket Awards, going through the buffet line, I couldn't tell what I was getting. It just looked like meats and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I was eating something, and I asked the person next to me, I said, "Can you tell me what I'm eating here?" And they said, "Oh, it's veal." I'd never had veal before. I wouldn't have gotten veal. I just would have been like, "No, I'm not eating that." So I've been by default trying some things that I probably wouldn't have tried, and I'm sure my wife will slip some things in some of the food um, that she cooks that she likes that she leaves out because she knows I don't. So if I can't see it, I might eat it. So that's one thing that's probably going to be different for me. Is I'm going to expand my horizons in terms of what I eat by default here.
You'll be able to have fine wine and everything, but yeah. So yeah, Halloween Haunt. It's hard to put like a grade on it because is this a grade based on how much fun did I have? Because I had an A+ worth of fun over the weekend.
Oh yeah,
As,
yeah.
as far as like, is it the best haunt we've ever had? And certainly not. But with that being said, is it worth going? Oh yeah. It's the whole theme of this season has been, I expected the worst and they delivered way above that. It's I just assumed it was going to be budget cuts and this and that. And Haunt, they just announced just a new scare zone, and it turned out like a lot of the experience was revolutionized, and they got the lanterns and stuff. Foreshadowing, we'll do an episode on the lanterns, don't worry. But definitely check out Haunt through the first weekend in November. It's on some Sundays as well. But Don, let's talk about t-shirts. You've got a murderers t-shirt on right now for those of you audio
Well,
listeners.
yeah. Well, it's not a t-shirt. It's a Hawaiian shirt. It's kind of the Michael Myers look here, but we're talking about Tower Topics t-shirts, and you can get yours in the Carolina blue. Comes in whatever size you need, just $22. It includes shipping. If you're interested, send us a direct message on our X, which is Tower_Topics. You can leave a message on our YouTube channel and just have us reach out to you. You can find my email by going to themeparksbydon.com and just email me and say you're interested. However you want to reach out to us, we will send you the QR code, and once the transaction goes through, it'll just take a matter of days before uh, that shirt is in your hands, in your possession.
Yeah, $22 including shipping. So we'd love to see those around. We'll be right back with the listener questions. All right, first listener question. Greg C. from Cincinnati, Ohio. He said, "Do you think a trimless Beast Ride would win the Golden Ticket Award for Best Wooden Roller Coaster? I think Kings Island needs to stop neutering it and let her rip." Yeah.
Let her rip. You know those brakes, trim brakes, whatever. You know, those have been there in those spots since the ride opened in 1979, and they're there for a reason. I know a lot of people argue. They like to argue with me. They weren't born yet. They didn't ride the Beast for the first time until 2004, but they'll insist to me that the ride didn't have trim brakes when it opened,
Mhm.
or not trim brakes, but just brakes in general. They were skid brakes back then. But the brakes have been there in those spots since day one, and they're there for a reason. With the layout and design of that ride, if they weren't there, it would tear it apart. There's those odd times, where the coaster enthusiasts would get that brakeless ride in the morning when they were still adjusting it back then when they had the skid brakes. A lot of it was done manually, so maintenance might not have got around to that. Going across the shed area there and adjusted that yet. Um, but nowadays with the trim brakes, as much as the enthusiasts don't like them, I think the ride it's a more consistent ride.
Mhm.
From your first ride of the day, last ride of the day. If you visit 3 days in a row, it's going to be the same through that shed every day. There's a consistency with it now with the trim brakes where there wasn't before. Sometimes it was extremely tight. You think it's tight now. There were days, 1979 throughout the 80s, uh, that, it slowed down a lot more going through there than it does right now.
Yeah.
Now, would it win the golden ticket if trimless? I mean, it's a whole different experience. If there weren't any brakes there and you fly through that course. I think it'd be in the argument. It would still be in the top three. It might not be number one, but it would certainly help its chances. I think if they were to drop the trims on a couple of special occasions, uh, coaster stock, for instance, or had they done that during the Ace Spring Conference, I think the word of mouth, would have traveled about it, and it might have got, this year it finished number three. Maybe it gets to number two, but it's a totally different animal that way. But the ride, if people want it to be around long term, 45 years old this year. If you want it to be there another 45 years, have to have the trim brakes.
Yeah, and as somebody that has experienced the Beast without trims, a long time ago, uh, it's not like the Voyage without trims. The trims are there to make it a more pleasant experience. It's not like you're lacking airtime or anything like that. It's you whip around those turns so fast that you like rib cage the side of the train. I vote against the trimless. I don't like the sensation when you're going through that little shed where you slow down. I think that's lame. But with that being said, the ride
You do, but you don't slow down as hard or it's a little more abrupt. I'll
Mhm.
say a little more abrupt than it was with the skid brakes, but it's going through there still a little faster consistently
Yeah.
than it used to.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I guess in a different world it remains to be seen, but I don't think we'll see the Beast run without trims anytime soon.
No, no, and to be number three, this year, I think that is really a tribute. Hats off to the Gravity Group for the work that they did on the ride over the last couple of
Mhm.
years. Kings Island's, maintenance carpentry team, because they also did a lot of track work on it. It's running better than it has, I always say, since 1990, because 1990 was the last year of the buzz bars, and it did change the dynamic of how that ride, feels. The comfort in the seats and that when the buzz bars went out, and you got the seat dividers and things are thicker than ever and all that, so it's changed it there. But since 1990, the Beast right now is running the best that it has, um, and it deserves its spot where it, at number three. Now, you don't often see a ride that's 45 years old climbing the charts. Usually they go down, and over the last several years, the Beast has continued to improve its ranking. It was at number nine not too long ago. Then it got to number eight, number seven. It was pretty solid in that 6 and 5 spot for a few years. And then number three this year. So you never know. Maybe by next year, maybe it gets to number two. Maybe it does end up at number one at some point. But it's a fantastic ride. Uh, they're putting in the work at Kings Island to make sure that it continues to operate, you know, and improving it, for the future. So who knows?
Yeah. All right. Next listener question, Barry from Mount Healthy, Ohio. He said, I miss the stories Don used to write for the Kings Island blog. There's been a noticeable drop in quality between what he did and what they're doing now. I know a lot of pass holders feel that way. With that being the case, is there any chance Don could write more Kings Island stories on his blog, themeparksbydon.com? Don't get me wrong, I love reading about other parks, but it's the Kings Island content that I want and need. The park just isn't delivering that anymore. And it's one of the reasons why I love this podcast so much. Well, Don, you better not write more about Kings Island if it's drawing people to the podcast.
Yeah, we got to have the podcast remain strong, right? First of all, I appreciate the kind words that you enjoyed the content and things that I wrote for the Kings Island blog. Um, I think I'm in 180 something range
Mm,
of the blogs that I've published. It's been about a year now that the Kings Island or the themeparksbydon.com blog, officially went live. So 180 something pieces of content, and out of that, there's 41, 42 Kings Island articles that I've written. So it's a high percentage of what I'm doing is Kings Island related, and so I'm doing the same kind of stories there that I did before. I don't know, how much more that I could do percentage wise,
mm,
without it being a Kings Island blog. With that, I've had good feedback on the stories that I've written on themeparksbydon.com. Uh, so I'm glad that you've enjoyed those. I'll try to do more, but the stories have to be there too, for me to write about. And sometimes some of the other parks that you see on there that the opportunities are there for me to gather that content. I'm visiting those parks. I'm getting news releases from other parks. So they're keeping me in the loop in terms of what's coming up with different events. And over the past month, I haven't been able to do what I've wanted for some of the parks in terms of their fall events, just because of the eye issue and that. So I'm just getting back on track. But I'll get back to doing what I was doing with it, with a great degree of frequency, 5 or 6 articles a week, and some of those will be Kings Island. But sometimes when there's other things that are coming into my inbox, different releases or invites to different media days and stuff, that's gonna be the priority, and that's what I'm gonna write about at that time because it's right in front of me. So we'll see. I'd love to do more in Kings Island, but we'll see.
yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of the times, especially for Tower Topics, show ideas that you pitch are stuff that if you were still in the position you were in, might have been blogs.
Correct.
Some of them are thought experiments, like best haunt night rides, best dog in Kings Island, stuff like that. Is we delve into it, from a verbal platform rather than the written platform. But
Right. We're still doing it the same way I would have done it. It's just you and I talking about it instead of me writing about it.
yeah, sometimes you school me with knowledge. But yeah, thank you so much, Barry from Mount Healthy, for the question. But hey, I'm Ryan Sir, along with Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.